Welcome. It's your man, God of Dots, back with another episode of the Audible. And tonight we will be mainly focusing in on the NBA. It is a few things in the NFL I do want to kind of cover before we get started with the NBA talk tonight. Hope everybody's had a good week first. Let me be the gracious souls that I know that I am. Shouts out to everybody. Hope you've had a good and fruitful week. I know that I have. Stay tuned. Tomorrow we'll be doing a Freestyle Friday show over here around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And we'll be doing that over here. As far as like the NBA news, how you doing, Miss Murph? As far as NFL news, biggest news coming out of the NFL over the last couple of days has been Jim Harbaugh, former head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, national champion Michigan Wolverines, has become the head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers. My opinion, a very good move for them. Jim Harbaugh has been a winner at each stop along his coaching journey, from his time at Stanford, of course, at Michigan, winning the national title. Was very successful in the NFL, while he was head coach in the San Francisco 49ers. So I think it'll be a good thing for the Chargers. Brings a lot of credibility, a lot of stability to the position. Brandon Staley just never seemed right for the job. And this NFL coaching carousel, and we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. As far as that, but this has been a very interesting cycle for NFL head coaching. Guys getting positions who, a lot of us didn't see coming as far as like being favorites for the positions. But we'll talk about that more in detail tomorrow. I want to focus in tonight on the NBA. We're at the mid-season point. All-Star game is right around the corner, I believe. All-Star starters was just released. Matter of fact, I think it was just released today. Give me a sec, y'all. Give me a sec. I mean, who's starting? Yeah, just the West starters have been announced. Oh yeah, West and East. So for first All-Star game starters, for the West will be LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Kevin Durant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Nikola Jokic. And I understand this. This is not All-Star game starters are voted in by the fans. So if a guy didn't make it as a starter, you have nobody to blame but the fans. It gets into when we're talking about the remaining All-Star reserves is where you can kind of nitpick. I know in the East you have Giannis, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, and Jason Tatum. I've been hearing a lot of flack from the NBA community is why Dame Lillard got picked over Jalen Brunson. Hey, this was the fans voted. In my opinion, I think Jalen Brunson, considering he is option one for the New York Knicks, who we'll talk about during the course of this show. I think Jalen Brunson deserved to be an All-Star game starter. But, like I said, the fans vote. The fans vote, it's been like that. It's not going to change. That's the beauty of how the NBA does their all-star selections. There are a lot of fans to pick starters and allow people with a little bit more insight into the NBA world to pick the reserves. LeBron and Giannis will be captains. So what that means for those who are not aware, they'll be picking out of the group of the all-star reserves for their teams. But we have reached pretty much the midpoint of the season. Most teams have played 45 plus games at this point of the season. And you have what's going on, Martinez? What's going on, man? You have a better idea at this point of the season. NBA for me is hard to cover throughout the course of the year. I don't typically get, laser focused until around this time of the year, because by this time of the year, you've kind of separated who's real, who's fake. And 82 game season, it's kind of hard to keep up with the individual storylines, the major stories coming out from each and every team, and keeping up with. This guy had a dominant performance this night, then the next night another guy has 50. It's too much, especially if you're talking about covering the whole league. And I like to give shine to each and every team. I don't want to make it just where I'm just focusing in on my team, for those who are new to the channel, I am a Lakers fan. I am a Lakers fan. Even before LeBron, I've been a Lakers fan for a very long time, and I don't think you do you guys just to sit up here and listen to me talk about the Lakers 30 minutes a night, talking about the woes and the issues and the stuff that I'm seeing with the team. But like I said, this is around the time of the year I get into to the NBA and really start honing in on who's who and what's what, as far as that goes. I am going to focus on some of the major storylines out of each conference, some of the major stories so far through the course of this year. So stay with me, be patient. Um, I think it's best to kind of start, here. We're talking about Ja Morant, who was suspended the first 25 games of the season, came back with a vengeance, was playing like he never missed a beat, and ends up getting hurt. Feel bad for anybody that is a Grizzlies fan. Feel bad for him because with a healthy job, with a healthy roster. I thought Memphis would be able to compete, not necessarily for best record in the West, but this was a team that was in the conversation during the course of the seasons from as far as like having the best record out there in the West. And to see this team get derailed by injuries, Ja coming back and looking as good as he was, I think Ja Moran, and in my opinion, if he's able to return back next season and play at the level he's capable of playing, I'd be hard pressed to find anybody else in the league that I can look to as the face of the NBA. And that's why you have the LeBron James thumbnail tonight. It's more like, who is next in line? Because LeBron is near the end of his road. Who is next in line to step in and become the face of the league? When I say the face of the league, doesn't necessarily mean the best player in the league, because it's been times where LeBron has been the best player. It's been times, especially over the last couple of years, where you can say Steph Curry's been the best player. You can say Nikola Jokic has been the best player. Last season's MVP and front runner for MVP this season, Joel Embiid, you can say he has been the best player. But when you say a guy, typically the NBA has worked, under the under the auspice of having a superstar player that brands the league. You have LeBron James in this era. You had the Kobe Bryant in the previous era, the Shaquille O'Neal for a stretch there, Michael Jordan for a stretch there. You can go back to Magic and Bird, Dr. J. The NBA has always had that one or two players, one or two players that kind of transcend the game of basketball. And I'm looking around the league. It's a lot of good young players. It's a lot of guys that can challenge for being the best player in the year. You can throw in Giannis Antetokounmpo into that mix. You have a lot of guys that can be looked at as being the best player. But when we look at the face of the league, I'm looking around, man, and I don't see it. Part of being the face of the league, I'm not saying you have to be a media darling, but the media has to, you got to have the media behind you first and foremost. Then you got to have the NBA engine pushing you. And then you got to have the media, you got to have the NBA pushing you, and you got to have fans that just gravitate towards you, whether they like you or whether they hate you. I think you can go around to anybody and that watches the NBA, and you'll get the most heated debate and discussions in regards to explain the career of LeBron James. Is LeBron James the GOAT? Like, you have to be in those kind of conversations during your era in the league to for my opinion, to be considered the face of the league. And I don't see it. I think Anthony Edwards is a good young player. Talent wise, I think he can be marketable as being the face of the league, but he's got kind of like his own issues. These guys just don't seem vested enough in being media savvy to get the media behind them, media pushing them. Ja Morant had that going into last season, but they kind of got derailed with his off the court issues. I think he has a possibility to kind of rehab his image next year. Maybe he could be in a conversation for being face of the league. I know the NBA was hoping that Zion would come into the league and take it by storm. And when he's been out on the court and been healthy, you can put him in a conversation for being the future face of the league. But problem with Zion, he can't stay on the court. He's always had injury issues. It's kind of kept him out of the conversation, seriously being in the conversation for being the face of the league. Joel Embiid has the possibility to be in the new face of the league. But I think a lot of that hinders on him as far as the success that the Philadelphia 76ers have this year. 76ers go out in the second round again. Joel Embiid doesn't make it to the finals at least. How can you really put him in the conversation for being a face of the league? On the opposite side out there in Denver, you have Nikola Jokic, who, depending on who you ask, they will say he's the best player in the league. But I don't see the NBA really pushing him to be the face of the league. Typically, when we're talking about the face of the league, it's an American-born player, and Yoke just he doesn't have that personality to draw in the casual fan. If you love the game of basketball and you love when you watch Nikola, it's hard not to like his game. It's hard not to love his game, but outside of that, be considered the face of the league, a guy that young players, young fans want to gravitate towards. I don't see it in him. And the NBA is kind of in a weird place right now when we're talking about the new face of the league. KD is getting older. Steph is getting older. LeBron, maybe next season is his last season. Who is ready to step into that chair? Who's ready to step into that position and carry that torch? Because it's always been carried in this league. It's always been that one guy that the NBA says, if we had to pick a guy, this is the guy that represents our league. Watch him, and you'll fall in love with the game of basketball. I'm just not seeing it from this new generation, this current crop of players. Call me what you want to call me. I just call it like I call it. But enough of that. Like I said, I want to get into some of the major storylines so far this season. You had the suspension, multiple suspensions of Draymond Green, and how that has affected the Golden State Warriors. I think what you're seeing now from the Golden State Warriors, unless something drastic happens over the second half of this season, unless a move is made for the second half of the season, you're seeing the end of a dynasty. You're seeing the end of a dynasty. And congratulations to the Golden State Warriors for even being competitive as long as they have been in the conversation, as long as they have. Steph has been as great of a player that this league has had. Anybody that doesn't have Steph Curry in the conversation for at least top 20 all time. You might even have people that's willing to put Steph into the conversation for top 10 all time. But just to see this franchise kind of fall off, taper off, and look like they have no direction. I know a lot of people are criticizing Coach Steve Kerr for not riding the young guns a lot more, but they're just not, when they're out there on the court, they have sparks. Kuminga looks like a future third option on the team, but he doesn't look like a superstar player. He doesn't look like a player you want to build your franchise around. And this is the cost of success. This is the cost of success. It happens to every dynasty. Eventually, a couple things catch up to teams, to catch up to a dynasty. You're talking about free agency, you're talking about salary cap, and you're talking about guys is getting older and the game's just tapering off. I still think Steph is playing at a high enough level. I think he'll make the All-Star team this year, but anybody that looks at Klay Thompson and sees a future for him as being a second option on a championship winning team, in my opinion, is on some narcotics that need to be drug tested. Draymond Green, still a high IQ player, especially on the defensive end, very smart player on the offensive end, but he can't be relied upon to control his emotions out there on the court, and it just cost his team dearly at different stretches during their dynasty run. And this season, I think is really kind of put them behind the eight ball. When you look at their record, let me see. When you look at their record, I mean, you're talking about a team that is 19-22, currently 12th in the West, and we're 40 plus games in. 40 plus games in. Now, I do think they have an opportunity to push for the play-in tournament, but I don't think anybody is looking at the Golden State Warriors and looking at them saying, "Hey, that's a team that's ready to make a championship run." Not this year. And I think it's time for this team to really look at seriously rebuilding. I don't know if you rebuild around Steph. I mean, how many years does he have left in the tank to be playing at a all-star MVP caliber level? This is the year, Golden State. You're gonna have to make some hard decisions this offseason. I thought they were going to move on from Draymond Green in the offseason. They didn't. They re-signed him. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Klay Thompson, because it's clear that Klay Thompson has not been the same player that he was prior to his injury about 4 years ago. But right now, about 4 years ago, he got hurt in 2019. Yeah, about four seasons full. He hasn't been the same player since. It's not the same scoring option. It's not the same defensive player that he was. Golden State, you're going to have to make some hard decisions about this team moving forward. I don't know if this team is going to really be in the market to try to make a splash at the trade deadline, which is coming up very soon. You're going to have to make a decision. And speaking of teams having to make a decision, I'm going to start, with my team, the Los Angeles Lakers. Who are currently sitting there a game below 500, have not looked good for stretches of this season. And, I'm not concerned about this team making it into the playoffs, but, is this team a championship team right now? I can't honestly say that as a fan that this team is I see making a run to an NBA title this year, and that's nothing to do with the play of LeBron James. It's more or less an indictment on the coaching staff. Is more of an indictment on the players. This team just doesn't seem to get up for the big games. You come out there and be very lackadaisical against bad teams. This team is built for a playoff run, but it's a tough watch watching the Lakers get through the season with some of the limitations that they have on the offensive side of the ball, as far as like guys being able to create their own shots, not dependent on LeBron James to play the kind of minutes that he's playing and being that big of the offense. I thought this was the year, if any other year in the past 2 or 3 years, that Anthony Davis was going to have to assert himself. I mean, really assert himself as the number one player on this team, but it's just not happened. When he's on, he's as dominant a player in the NBA, but too often, and I've seen it too many times, he is just too inconsistent for me to really bank on maintaining that level of play. I mean, when he's on, he's in the conversation for best big man in the NBA. But the difference between him and a Nikola Jokic, the difference between him and a Joel Embiid, the difference between him and a Giannis Antetokounmpo, those guys are way more consistent with the performances that they put out on a nightly basis. And AD just doesn't do it, man. AD, he'll be hot for a quarter, then fade. You barely remember he's out on the court, then he'll turn around and have a very dominant game, and you start looking at this dude like, man, if he's able to put it together this consistently, he could be the best player in the league, but he just doesn't do it enough. For me, I think, like I said, I think the Lakers will be fine to get into the playoffs, but they got some big decisions with the trade deadline coming up. Do you move off D'Angelo Russell? Do you move off some other players? Is Austin Reeves an option? It's been talks that the Lakers have been interested in Atlanta Hawks guard DeJounte Murray in a trade package. I think Atlanta, with how their season is kind of going, will be open to moving off DeJounte. And if I'm a Lakers fan, give me DeJounte over Austin Reeves. But they fall in love with Austin Reeves. I don't see him being moved unless it's too enticing of a player for him to be out of some. I just don't see Austin Rivers is not a comparable player to DeJounte Murray. Sorry, Lakers fans, not sorry. But focusing in on the rest of the NBA, I want to focus in on the West first, and then we'll talk about the East. Right now, surprisingly, the team with the best record, two teams with the best record, they're currently tied with identical win-loss records. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think anybody had at this point of the season had Oklahoma City or Minnesota as being tops in the Western Conference, the loaded Western Conference. But OKC, they've got a squad out there led by SGA, who's got to be in the conversation. I don't think he'll win it, but he's going to be in the conversation for MVP this year. A very good young team that they've put together there, and those guys play hard. They play good, smart basketball. Oklahoma City is going to, whether they end up with the number one seed or not, it's going to be a very, 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 very tough out for whoever they match up with in the playoffs. I could say the same thing for the Minnesota Timberwolves if, and this is the thing with the Timberwolves, if this team to go ahead and decide to make Anthony Edwards option 1 and Cat option 2, I think that'll lead this team deeper into the playoffs than they went last year. I think they have the makeup. If they lead into Anthony Edwards being number 1 and Cat being number 2, I think this team has the makings to make a very deep playoff run. I think they match up well at certain positions with some of the other top teams in the Western Conference. But I think, although Cat is a very good player, I think this team goes to another level if Anthony Edwards is option 1. But in true Minnesota fashion, you never know what they're going to do out there. But currently, you got the Thunder and you got the Timberwolves sitting atop right behind those two teams. A half game back. Denver Nuggets quietly just going along. Jokic is having another MVP caliber season. I think the only thing that can derail Denver from returning to the NBA Finals is injury. It is nobody, and I mean nobody, in the Western Conference that is going to slow Jokic or stop Jokic from doing what he want to do. If this team is fully healthy, I think with their experience, their chemistry, and just the talent that they have out there, and the way that Denver plays basketball, I don't see any team as a constant, as these teams stand now, giving them a serious push in a 7-game series. And I don't think Denver is too much concerned about having home court. And I think home court in the NBA has gotten kind of overrated. I mean, our team, we've seen too many teams push for the best record in the NBA and don't make it out of the first or second round of the playoffs. And I'm looking at you, Milwaukee Bucks from last year. Had the best record in the NBA, got put out the first round. But Denver, to me, still favors to repeat. Only thing that can stop them is injury. I don't think any other teams, especially when we're talking about the Western Conference, going to be able to make a significant enough move as far as personnel is concerned to really push, the Nuggets off that mountain. I just don't see it. Currently in fourth, you have the Clippers. Clippers, where I think can make a deep playoff run, but the question is always with them, can they stay healthy? You have James Harden over there, who has an injury history. Kawhi Leonard has an injury history. PG-13 has an injury history. But the only guy on that team that doesn't have a significant injury history is Russ. And Russ, in my opinion, is played fantastic coming off the bench. I don't think enough people are giving the Clippers enough credit. Now they're going to have to get better on the road. They currently have a losing record on the road, but they are a very good team at home. But I think you want to be in that conversation for NBA title favorites. You're gonna have to do better on the road. You're gonna have to win some road playoff games. But the Clippers have looked good this year. Surprising how quickly this team has kind of come together after bringing James Harden into the mix, finding out his role. Everybody kind of changing up their roles just a little bit to fit him into the rotation there, fit him into what they got going on. Clippers, are going to be another tough out. Um, I'm not high on the Suns or the Pelicans, who currently sit at 5th and 6th right now in the West. Suns, they'll make the playoffs. Defense is going to kill them yet again. And with the Pelicans, I'm just waiting for Zion to get hurt. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Zion has yet to play a full season. Has yet to play a full. I'm just waiting. It's bound to happen. It typically happens with him in the second half of the season anyway. I'm just waiting for him to get hurt. And that's a damn shame, because when he's out there and he's healthy, and he's in game shape, Zion is a unique monster. He reminds me of Charles Barkley with the athleticism, meaning his game is predicated on the inside, but he gets up quicker and faster and higher than Charles ever did. But their games to me are kind of similar. Call me crazy for that. But I'm just waiting for the Pelicans. I'm waiting for the injury bug to kind of catch up to them, like it is. It is, it's like a snake bitten franchise. Every time you think the Pelicans are ready to really compete out there in the Western Conference, somebody gets hurt. Typically it's Zion. For stretches last year, it was Brandon Ingram. For stretches last year, it was also CJ McCollum. This team the injury bug bites them, and it always seems to bite them and bite them bad. As far as the rest of the Western Conference, it's competitive all the way up and down. Now, I will say this before we move on to the Eastern Conference. I think the most surprising part of the season, as far as the Western Conference is concerned, is how well the Houston Rockets have improved under new head coach Ime Udoka. They're a scary team, currently sitting at 11th in the Western Conference, but they're only a game back only a game back of being in the ninth seed. I'd be kind of scared if I was a team coming into the play-in tournament. I would not. If Houston is able to get in, yeah, it's how them boys been playing, and a lot of people not talking about it. I mean, they're currently 3 games under 500, but I mean, for them to have this big of a turnaround this quickly into Ime Udoka's first season as the head coach, be on the lookout for Houston. You heard it here first. If Houston is able to kind of stay healthy and he keeps working with those young guns that he's got out there, Houston could be a problem when we're talking about playoff time. I think this team is going to probably sneak into the play-in tournament, and I mean, they got talent out there in Houston. I'd be kind of scared. If I was the rest of the Western Conference, I wouldn't be overlooking Houston. This is a very, very well put together team. Have a pretty decent record. Have a winning record right now in the conference, which says a lot. So it means they're not getting easy wins over the bad teams out there in the East. Rockets. You heard it here first. Rockets, a team to watch for the second half of the season out there in the Western Conference. We'll talk about Wemby as we kind of close out the show, but when we'll go over to the Eastern Conference right now, is pretty much what I thought it was going to be. 3-team race at the top. You got the Boston Celtics, who have looked dominant at home. And Boston, they're currently 3 games up on the Bucks, but Boston is gelled faster, and they look a lot better than I thought they would. They move off of Marcus Smart. I thought they were going to take a hit on it on the defensive end by moving off of Marcus Smart but for them to get Drew Holiday, who could be in the conversation for best defensive player, let alone best defensive guard, could be in the conversation for best defensive player in the NBA. To be able to bring him in at the beginning of the season, you bring in the unicorn Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, that is a tough starting 5. And I'm not even talking about on the offensive side of the ball. That is a tough starting 5. As far as the defense, because all of those guys can move. Those guys have length. I mean, Drew Holiday is a bigger guard. Jaylen Brown is athletic enough to get into the passing lane. So is Jason Tatum. You have Al Horford, even though he's up there in age, is still one of the better defensive center slash power force we have. And then you have the unicorn, Christopher Porzingis, 7'3". And when he's locked in and motivated, engaged in the game, is a force on the defensive end as far as like altering shots. Now, he's not no Rudy Gobert as far as blocking shots, but he's a much better defensive player in this system that they have out here in Boston. And I think Boston has come out with a renewed emphasis on playing defense. Currently had the second best defense in the league. Offense is looked amazing, but defense is going to carry this team as far as it will take them. And I think in a matchup against a Bucks team, a matchup against a 76ers team in the playoffs, who are currently sitting at second and third in the Eastern Conference, defense is going to play a huge role for Boston. Because I think that's what cost them last year in the playoff. This was not the same defensive team they was the previous season under Ime Udoka. But this team came in with a renewed focus on the defensive end. Possibly credit that to some of the new players that they got coming in, especially when you have Drew Holiday being able to pick up any guard. Is able to guard the other team's best defensive player. It's gonna be best offensive player. But Boston has looked good, and this if a team that needs home court more than anybody else in the NBA, that's got to be the Boston Celtics. For them to be 20-1 at this point of the season, and they've looked dominant at home, and it looked not that bad away from home. Still have a winning record away from home, but Boston, I don't know if I did a preseason show. I don't know if I did. What's going on, Spider? I might have to change my picks based on how they've been playing. Milwaukee Bucks. Let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Moving off former head coach Adrian Griffin. For what reason, I'm not sure. The guy had a winning record, 31-13. First head coaching job. I don't know why they moved on from him. The team has come out and said, we just wanted to go in a different direction. We didn't like some of the chemistry issues, some of the rotation problems. Let's keep it a buck. If Giannis wanted him to be the head coach, if Dame wanted him to be the head coach, he would still be the head coach. I don't buy that nonsense when these players, obviously, this is not like the team has been playing bad. You're only 3 games back of the best record in the Eastern Conference. It's not like this team has been playing bad. He hasn't done this is not the Detroit Pistons we're talking about. But for players, I had no role in that. I had no say-so on that. Nigga, stop the cap. This is the NBA. Superstar players control franchises. If you don't believe me, look at Kevin Durant. Superstar players have long controlled this league. Superstar players are able to dictate where they go. Like when they want out of a place, hey, I want out of here, and I want to go play here. This is the NBA. Look no further than James Harden this offseason. His issues with the Philadelphia 76ers. Hey, I want out of here. I don't want to play. I don't want to show up for anything, and I want you to trade me to the Clippers because that's where I want to be. This is the NBA. And for Giannis, a day we were shocked. We didn't know. We didn't have any input in that decision. Stop lying. This stop lying. Stop insulting my intelligence. Stop insulting my intelligence. You guys wanted him gone, and I'm Doc Rivers. It makes me think they had Doc Rivers in mind for a very, very long time. How quickly they got that deal done. Typically, when NBA teams move on from a head coach in the middle of a season, they typically let an assistant coach kind of rock out to the end of the season, and that way they have a better pick. But for you guys Adrian Griffin was fired on Monday. Doc Rivers had a contract by Wednesday. It kind of lets me know you had Doc Rivers in your mind, in the back of your mind, prior to this, and before you fired the guy. But I think the Bucks will be in the conversation once again when we're talking about the playoffs. We'll talk about that as we get closer to that. But this team is going to take a step back defensively. You lose Drew Holiday. arguably the best defensive guard in the NBA, one of the best defensive players in the NBA, and you replace him with a guy who's a much better scorer. But Dame has never been a defensive player. Dame has never been a guy that's like, yo, Dame, I need you for a quarter or two to lock somebody down. It's not his game. It's never been his game. And I love Dame Lillard's game, but I know he don't play D like Drew Holiday. So I don't know why Bucks fans are surprised that your team took a step back defensively. You just it ain't the same dogs you got out there. Um, you're a better, I think you're more efficient offensive team than you were last year, but you're gonna take a step back defensively. Thinking of excuse me, moving on from the Bucks, I'm surprised the 76ers. And I know it's surprising for me to even say that this is an early season surprise for me. I thought this team was going to take a significant step back after trading James Harden, but it's like Giannis took up the challenge and said, "Let me raise my game to an even higher level." Coming off an MVP season, let me raise my game to an even higher level. I've been thoroughly encouraged by the play of Maxey alongside him. If Joel is healthy, oh, I mean, I could see the 76ers coming out the East. If Joel is taking his, he had an MVP caliber season last year and is taking his game to another level. He seems more locked in, more focused. And he seems like he's in slightly better shape than he was last season. And that's a scary thing for the NBA, because there's no player in the NBA currently that can stop Joel. None. It's no guy that that can challenge him. For the Giannis is a great player, but Joel is playing on another level right now. And I'm going to say I'm thoroughly surprised. I didn't think his game could get any better, but this season he has shown he can take his game to different levels. He can't still help. Hey, Ms. Murph, that is always the issue with the 76ers, health. But if Joel is healthy during the playoff, I mean, it's nobody matches up with him. Nobody matches up with him. I mean, he's a Joel is a problem. Joel is a problem. As far as the rest of the Eastern Conference, I would say keep your eye out for the Cavs and the Knicks. Much like last season, both these teams, right now currently 4-5 in the NBA. The Knicks have been a much better team since trading RJ Barrett for OJ. Can't say the dude's last name. OG Anubi or Nabi. I can't never say his last name. But New York has looked better since trading for him. This team looks a lot better defensively, and they're going to need it. Only question I have with the Knicks is Julius Randle going to come along for the ride? I have no issues with OG's game. I know what I'm going to get from Jalen Brunson every night. Julius Randle is the X factor for the Knicks moving forward. I know it's been conversations of teams, kind of poking around to see if Julius Randle is available. I wouldn't trade for him. He's too inconsistent of a player. The Cavaliers, talk about the Cavaliers, quietly sitting right there, in the fourth spot. Unless this team kind of makes a major move, I don't see this team, going no further than the second round. And it's been talks. Fantasy talks, in my opinion, that Donovan Mitchell may be on the move. He may be on the move. As we get closer to the trade deadline, teams looking to make that significant addition. I don't think the Cavaliers are in a position to bring a player in. So Donovan Mitchell, kind of keep an eye on him. Will he be moved by the trade deadline? Like I said, I've been hearing talks of teams poking around, asking the Cavaliers about the interest in bringing him in. Cavs, I don't see him making any unless something changes, unless we're talking about injuries and stuff to other teams, but I don't see the Cavaliers making it past the second round as constantly constituted. Looking at the rest of the East, I'm surprised that um the Pacers, or who are currently seventh right now, are playing like this. I mean, just I don't know what it is when they get to play the Bucks. They look like a world beating team, but this, I mean, you're barely above 500, and this, we're talking about the East here. Um, this is, yeah, I'm just kind of confused by what I'm seeing. You got guys playing great. Tyrese Halliburton, if you missed the beginning of the show, has been named a starter for the All-Star game. This Pacers team, unless they're playing the Bucks, they just don't bring it on a nightly basis, man. Just don't bring it enough on a nightly basis for me to be overly confident in them as we look forward to the playoffs. Um, Surprised about how well the Orlando Magic have played currently. Hopefully, they can continue the strong play. They got a good young team there. They got to get better on the road, but I think this team can make a little noise if they can get into the playoffs. I don't see them beating that top three out there in the East, but then they may be able, if they can get in. Keep pushing. I mean, you're only three and a half back from the sixth seed. If you can get to that sixth spot, maybe you can make a little noise. Maybe you can make a little noise. But the rest of the East, trash, trash. I mean, I'm not going to waste my breath talking about them. Trash, trash, trash is bad basketball, but that's typically how the East is. And before we kind of close out the show, I said I was going to talk about Wemby. I have been thoroughly impressed so far this season by Wemby. He's played a lot better than I thought he would. He has played a lot stronger than I thought he would. I thought he would be hitting the rookie wall. He still may hit the rookie wall, but I thought he would hit the rookie wall, fatigue, and playing NBA minutes against NBA players with wear on him. But San Antonio has something there. Now you got to build around them. Now you got to build around them. I've been thoroughly impressed with Wemby. I have to honestly say this. Looking at his game, as he's kind of progressed through this season, I like what I see. I like what I see. I like what I see. But anyway, let me get my behind up out of here because y'all know I do not do these long shows. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow, Freestyle Friday over here. Um, kind of follow up on a couple conversations we had in the past. We were talking about the NBA, NFL coaching carousel. Why can't Eric Bieniemy get a fair shot at the job? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Um, as always, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I'll probably be over in the other space tomorrow. Um, and of course, I got so much stuff. I need to slow down. I need to slow down. But thank you for taking the time out to listen to me. It's always appreciated. And enjoy for the phrase that pays over here. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but every time you learn. And I'm out.